Hello. We have a few people out there already. Hang on. 4 people. G'day, how are we all? G'day. First by TNT Balls. How are you, mate? Coop. I was thinking that this time of the day it'd be everybody from over in America, but all you guys have the day off work or something. How are we all doing? How are you doing, Coop? Then you've got a few new videos I've got to have a look at. At 10 p.m. your location. Where would that be? My Florida, East Coast of America would be my wild guess. But it's midday, yeah? Howdy from, I'm assuming that's Texas, Ohio. G'day, guys. Got work in about an hour, otherwise good. Yeah, no, this fella, he still needs a name. He was basically a donation, him and a female. Just outgrew their current housing situation, I suppose. And they wanted somewhere where they could move into an outdoor enclosure. So they're in my fairly basic outdoor pits at the moment, but we're going to be building a nice sort of, I suppose, feature pit where these guys and the turtles can live together. Yeah, so you're working at the uni, Coop, or for those of you who don't know, guys, Coop's Reptiles is who I'm calling Coop. He's got a really cool YouTube channel, much the same as ours, lots of native Australian stuff, and he helps out a bit with a really cool collection of lizards at a university. So yeah, check him out. Texas. Be warm in Texas, I suppose. We're coming to the end of our summer at the moment, so it was meant to be 30 degrees, so I had a bunch of lizards moved outside, then the weather's just come in lousy. What's everybody else up to today? There goes our water dragon. Come on, guys, I can't just talk to myself, I suppose. So, yeah, basically, I considering I'm got to keep the ball rolling, I thought I'd do a bit of a quick live stream because you may or may not have noticed I haven't done a video in like 4 weeks, which I felt really bad about. We've just been flat chat. We've been doing shows, between shows and farm work, 7 days a week, all month, and today's the first day I've had off and I'm on daddy duty, so little Tacker's in bed. She'll probably wake up if I talk too loud. I might close the door. But, there you go. So little Tacker's in bed, and I thought I'd have a bit of a chance for a quick live stream just to show I'm still here. We have a bunch of videos sort of written up that I'm hoping to get time to film in the next few days. I've also just been given a big flash Nikon camera that somebody suggested I start filming my videos on, except I can't figure out how to use the thing. So, as soon as I work it out, maybe you'll see a jump in the quality of our videos, and maybe it'll get thrown out the window, who knows. But we'll see how we go on that front. But yeah, basically we've just been looking for a chance to get out some animals and film some of these videos. So we've got a lot of cool topics. I've got an interview that I'm hoping to do with a mate of mine who was bitten by an inland taipan and his experiences with being bitten by the world's most venomous snake. So that should be a good video. Lots of other interesting things coming up. Yeah, we've also got, you might have seen on our website, wickedwildlife.com, we've got a couple of different shirts. Wicked Wildlife shirts, some with our logo and some with with other little things like cute koalas and little slogans about koalas and wombats and whatnot. So yeah, a few things happening in the pipeline. How's everybody else out there in YouTube land? We've got 5 people out there now. Yeah, no worries, Coop. Like I said, I've always enjoyed your videos since before we did ours. So, g'day, TJ's Fish and Reptiles. How are you, mate? Got a water dragon hiding under the couch. Doing good. Good to hear. Maybe you can catch this fly. What time is it there? It's about midday. Yeah. Which is why I'm able to do a quick live stream. It's my first day off work in a long time because I'm on daddy duties and it's Isabella's nap time. So we're able to take out a couple of animals and sit down for a couple of minutes and do a bit of a live stream. Like the Eastern Water Dragon, yeah, this fella, I'm getting really attached to him really quick. 10 p.m. here in Florida. Yeah, I suppose you're on the other side of the world. I thought midday might work for a combination of, you know, my Australian mates who are all maybe on lunch breaks or whatever, and you guys over there before you go to bed. If I do them too early here, you guys get them, and if I do them at a time over there, a lot of people here miss out. So lunchtime-ish here works well. But yeah, I'm getting really attached to this guy. Water dragons, if you know anything about them, are generally pretty flighty. Really cool animals, but they're not I suppose like a beardy who's happy to sit there and just put up with everything. But this guy and a female were both offered to me a couple of weeks ago, maybe a bit longer now. Basically, they'd outgrown their previous enclosures, and the lovely couple that owned them wanted them to go somewhere they could move outdoors and you know, live out the rest of their lives. And the girl, she's friendly, but she's pretty well a typical water dragon. But this guy here is awesome. He's started doing a couple of shows. I'm down the way from Camp Kennan. Oh yeah, I meant to try and put together some videos for the Camp Kennan Army. I haven't done one for 2 or 3 months. Our summer season here with wildlife shows is the busy time of year, so it's just winding down now. So I haven't done any videos for my own channel or Camp Kennan Army channel the last few weeks. But yeah, nah, Coop, this guy's really relaxed. So now that he's started doing, g'day Jonathan, now that he's started doing shows, he's going to need a name, because, you know, the couple absolutely loved him, but the pair of them didn't have names. Yeah, he is a cool lizard, this fellow. Got to get him back over for sure. I would love to catch up with Kennan. We were sort of in contact for a little while via email, because they were hoping to come over to Australia later this year. However, they were offered the chance to build that amazing rec pond out the front of his house, which took up all the funds they were using to come to Australia. So who knows? If you want Kennan to come to Australia and come visit all our wildlife here, leave a comment on his videos, guys. Tell him you want to see him getting up close with, you know, Slug the taipan and Boo the wombat and all the cool, really Australian stuff. Man, you should do a collaboration. Yeah, well, look us up on Facebook, mate. Send us a message and let us know what you've got in mind. I'm always keen to show some people some animals that I can't normally get access to, because you may or may not be aware, here in Australia we can only keep native reptiles, which is actually going to be the topic of one of my videos in the next couple of weeks. I've got half of it filmed on 3 reasons we can't keep exotic reptiles in Australia, which is sort of loosely based off a magazine article from Reptiles Australia going back 10 years. So just going back on that and touching how relevant it is. But yeah, if you're interested in a collaboration, mate, look us up on Facebook. It's just Wicked Wildlife. Send us a message. We'll see if we can work something out. But yeah, I'm really wrapped with this guy. But I'm open to suggestions for a name. I think in the end I'll probably put maybe it up for a bit of a vote with our patrons. Because, you know, we've got a handful of people who really generously help us out every month to keep these videos coming out. Because, you know, if all you guys who have your own channels will be aware, you don't make much from YouTube. So we've got to have a lot of outside work to keep all these animals fed and happy. And those patrons, you know, every month help me put a little bit more time into my animals, a little bit less time chasing work outside. So in exchange, I'd like to let them sort of have a bit of a pick on name, but I'm open to any ideas that I can pitch to them, guys. If you think of a cool name for this guy here, I've put a photo of him up on a bearded dragon owner's page, which Australian reptile keepers, no offense to anybody on these pages, often laugh a little bit about bearded dragon pages based over in the States. We've got a very, maybe a simpler way of keeping them. We're not as anti-sand as people are overseas. You don't see beardies kept on carpet or tile or things here in Australia. But anyway, I thought I'd put up a photo of this guy on a bearded dragon page, and somebody sort of pointed out he looks a bit like a beardy crossed with an iguana. But it was actually really cool to see people over there get really excited about a water dragon, because here in Australia, these guys are almost a bit, I suppose, a bit like your green iguana over in America. They're so easy to breed and they're so available, and they're like $30 as babies, that they're almost a bit neglected. You know, they're considered simple reptiles. But, you know, here's a really cool lizard. Any other country in the world would love to get their hands on something like this guy. So, you know, just because something's affordable doesn't mean, or simple in its care, doesn't mean it's any less, you know, worthy of our respect, I suppose. G'day, Shannon. How are you, mate? Same thing in the end. We keep exotic reptiles. Yeah, so here in Australia, we can't keep exotic reptiles. So all the reptiles we keep in Australia have to be native Australian species. So there's no ball pythons allowed over here, no corn snakes, iguanas, leopard geckos, all that. So, you know, beardies, carpet pythons, children's pythons, water dragons. That's the mainstay. So if you went to a reptile expo here in Australia, it'd be very, very different to if you went to any of your reptile expos over there in the States. I know a lot of states over in the US have the complete opposite system. You're allowed exotics and you're not allowed native reptiles. And both, I suppose, have an interesting conservation sort of value. The idea of not keeping exotics, which, as I said, I've got a video I'm about to put out on why we can't keep exotics, but, you know, we don't want to be bringing animals into a country that might escape, e.g. Florida. The other argument that some of the US states have is by not allowing people to keep natives and only keeping exotics, there's a much lower risk of poaching. You know, people can't collect stuff from the wild and say, oh, I bred it myself. So they've both got their pros and cons. But yeah, here in Australia, all our stuff is native. Why are there only 3 types of snakes in Tasmania? Why not more? I know it's off topic. No, it's not off topic at all. I need something to talk about. So Tasmania, I suppose, basically, as far as habitat goes, it's the most southern cool point in the country. It's not suitable habitat for any of our pythons, for example. Like even southern Victoria, we've got 5, maybe 6 species in southern Victoria. In my area, southwest Victoria, which is pretty cool and windy, we've got tiger snakes, copperheads, down along the coast, white-lipped snakes, which are the 3 Tasmanian species. And the only real additions we get is eastern browns in the very northern parts of southwest Victoria, and red-belly black snakes in a few places as well. So yeah, Tasmania's pushing the range as far as what's suitable for snakes. So the species down there are all live-bearing, because live-bearing reptiles are generally more cold tolerant. They're not relying on that place being warm and dry for a 60-day incubation. They're carrying their eggs inside their guts from warm place to warm place to warm place. So yeah, live-bearing reptiles do well, and that straight away basically pushes out the egg-laying species, the pythons and things. I was talking to somebody who had an interesting argument about why weren't red bellies and things found there, because red bellies would put up with the climate, and they're found in Victoria. And all we could think of was that once upon a time, when Tasmania and mainland Australia were connected, the gap in between probably wasn't suitable habitat for those species like a red belly to cross. So if the gap in between was, you know, 600-700 kilometres of just open grassland, which that low-lying country often is, without the permanent waterways that red bellies want, even though there's suitable habitat on the other side, he can't get across. It's what we call island biogeography theorem. It's the same reason why diamond pythons would survive in the southwest of Western Australia, but you've got 1,000 kilometres of nullable plain of desert in between the two. So even though it's suitable for him on the other side, if there's no way for him to get there, he's not going to survive there either. So for a combination of those factors, there's limited species that can survive down there, and being isolated, limited species could get there. It was only who was there at the time when Tasmania broke away. Hope that's a pretty good explanation for you. Yeah, in Florida, I'd say you've got more than several invasive species. I've seen the list, it's crazy. Mind you, it would have to be the only place in the world, as far as I'm aware, where you can get a crocodile species, a caiman species, and an alligator species all in one area. That'd be pretty cool. I know the caiman's not super abundant over there, but there is invasive, is it spectacled caimans, I think, now in the Everglades. But yeah, between caimans and tegus and iguanas and all sorts of things. Florida is a really good example of why we cannot keep exotic reptiles here in Australia. We don't want, get the bug, we don't want Australia to end up like Florida. We've already got big problems with invasive reptiles here in Australia. Oh, so not invasive reptiles, big problems with invasive species in general. You know, everything from camels to donkeys to rabbits, cane toads, foxes, cats, you know, everything. Have I ever come across a snake I couldn't identify? Yeah, for sure. G'day, Rami, how are you, mate? So Jonathan, I suppose down here, I live on sort of the southern end of Victoria. There's only a handful of species, and most snake catchers, or even people with a general interest in reptiles, will be able to identify our local species. I used to spend a bit of time working up in central Queensland, and I was catching snakes from outback mine sites. And what they did was they dig a big trench, 10 kilometres long, which I don't know is 5 miles or something. It's either, I can't remember if miles are bigger or smaller, but it's a long way, 10 k's. And snakes had formed this trench, and every day I'd have to catch the snakes out. And because a lot of these snakes are sort of smaller fossorial species that are, you know, living under the ground or amongst leaf litter, and they'd fall in this trench. Some of them, you've got several species who look very, very similar. So, you know, I could tell you the family, but then we'd have to actually catch him, take some really good photos, take it back to a book and do a scale count, and then identify them. So, yeah, I've certainly had some snakes I couldn't identify in the past, but so far we've always managed to get an answer in the end. You know, there's 140-ish species of snakes in Australia, and I don't know anybody who could identify every single one reliably at a glance. You know, there's some very, very good herpetologists who could figure anything out, but yeah. Oh. Burmese python and green iguana, tegu, Nile monitors, agama, other invasive. Yeah, you know, you've got absolutely heaps of them. It's good that Australia's doing that because, yeah, that's it. We've got plenty of animals here that we can keep. So there's no really big reason to want anything else. And yeah, Garrett, we can keep exotic fish in Australia. There's pretty strict import-export laws, and most of them are probably bred here now. Same as some of our exotic birds. You know, there's macaws available in Australia. Macaws over in the United States are a lot cheaper than here. In Australia, they're fetching, you know, $4,500 because even though we're allowed those exotic birds, we're not allowed to bring them into the country. We're limited to the ones that were already brought over before we set in these rules. So yeah, nothing can come in or out now. This April's my first year on YouTube. Yeah, I'll have to check out your channel, mate. I know I've said that in the past, but I will try and get across and have a look. We've been going for, I don't know, 2 and a bit years, I suppose. I was at a park yesterday and found a gator, some turtles, several birds. Parking boys trying to catch a tegu. As much as I talk about how we don't want exotic reptiles in Australia because they could become pests, I've got to admit, if I wanted to visit somewhere to catch reptiles, it would be Florida. It doesn't make all your exotic pests there okay in any way, shape or form. But it's kind of becoming a bit of a mecca for reptiles, isn't it? It'd have to be the only place where you can go and you can catch reptiles from every continent on the planet in one area. Pretty cool. Other than them Antarctic reptiles, we don't really have any of them. Am I planning on going to another country and possibly herping anytime soon? No, I can't see me going to another country anytime in the next few years. I live in a small country town. There's a distinct lack of people willing to look after a collection of 100 venomous snakes and crocodiles and things. So yeah, we don't travel much. I am going to be going to Darwin, which will be my first actual holiday in 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. We're going to be going to Darwin. We're actually going up for a rodeo, but I'm going to try and get in touch with a few people and do some videos up there. I would love to be able to film some Owen Pelly pythons. I know somebody who's got some up there, but you know, they're incredibly rare snakes, and obviously he might not want people filming his collection or anything like that. And a few other things. We might visit Crocodilus Park, that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're going to go on a trip, but certainly not overseas. You know, 4 or 5 days is about as long as I can be away. Have I seen Nile crocs in Florida? Yeah, there was a bit of a scare about it on Facebook, all these articles, you know, man-eating Nile crocs in Florida. As far as I'm aware, the only thing I can find is there was 3 caught. They were all sort of yearling-ish size, you know, small, but not hatchlings. And the paper, or the publication was saying they were looking at doing DNA testing to figure out if they're all related, which would indicate maybe that somebody's bought 3 and just dropped them all off at the same time. So, lucky they found them. I don't think there's been any evidence of more of them yet. Hopefully not, because, you know, Nile crocodiles would be disastrous for the Everglades. Not only because they'd compete with your alligators, but because the Nile crocodile, we don't know, but I imagine would have a pretty high possibility of hybridizing with the American crocodiles, because all the New World crocodilians, American crocodiles, Orinoco crocodiles, etc., Morlets, they're a divergent branch that evolved from the Nile crocodile when Africa and North America split apart and the Atlantic Ocean formed. So they are in the same sort of side of the crocodile family, and the last thing we want is more hybridization. Nile crocodiles in Florida, wow. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, no, they probably kill more people than any other species of crocodile in the world, which is less to do with, you know, being more aggressive and more to do with the fact they have this massive distribution that overlaps with, you know, 1 billion people who are all relying on water for food and drinking water and washing and whatnot. So, situations. Are there any crocodiles in South America? Yeah, you've got the American crocodile. Is found through Central America. I don't know how far south it goes. I know it's found in Belize, places like that. You've got the Orinoco crocodile in South America itself, in the Orinoco River, which is in the Amazon basin. And you've got the Morlets crocodile as well in Central America that might push into South America. I think that's your only 3 true crocodiles. But then you've got all the caimans in South America, and there's, you know, 6 or more caimans. You've got black caimans and spectacled caimans and yakra caimans and all sorts as well, which caimans are genetically, essentially tropical alligators. They're very, very close to alligators. But yeah, South America has all their own crocodilian life, but I think it's only the 3 crocodiles you get on the South American continent. I'm sure some will pop up eventually. Yeah, well, if you keep bringing things in and letting people buy things without licenses, it's only a matter of time, isn't it? Try and find some big top-end mulgars. That would be fun. It would be great to find some top-end mulgars. Unfortunately, I'm there for 5 days with my partner and my little tacker in tow who aren't into reptiles, and we're going to be there in August. So it's not ideal herping weather, but we will have a look around. I hope on visiting Black Jungle Swamp, which is where Bryony, the young girl who was killed by a crocodile a few years ago, was attacked. And Fog Dam. But yeah, it's just a matter of timing, how much stuff I can get organised, how many videos I can sort of tee up, and how much time we spend hanging around Noonamar for the rodeo. Working on endangered species, working on conserving any endangered species in Australia. Am I personally or Australians? Australians, there's a lot of work going on at the moment. I'm going to be running out of batteries soon. What species on my hand? Here's an eastern water dragon. The other thing I've got hanging around here, actually, who'd probably like to come out and say hello. Where are you, Peter? Me personally, I suppose I don't do a lot of breeding. I breed a few things, squirrel gliders and whatnot, but nothing for release programs. Only because most of the animals that I keep are very, very humanized. I'm using them for educational outreach. So yeah, I'm open to eventually breeding things for conservation, like release program sort of thing. This isn't a mouse, she's a ringtail possum. Well, he's a ringtail possum, I should say. But yeah, currently, you know, you've got to be involved in an accredited zoo. We're not like over in America where, you know, Kenan, for a perfect example, is involved with the Turtle Alliance, and private people can become involved. Hopefully that happens one day. The issue with private people breeding wildlife from a conservation standpoint, not from a captive keeping standpoint, is how do we make sure that we're maintaining bloodlines? People aren't breeding related animals and trying to produce colour morphs and this not. Because as soon as we start breeding colour morphs, that whole line becomes redundant from a conservation standpoint. We can't ever release Darwin carpet pythons, for instance, that might carry albinism, because we're going to start creating in sort of imbalance, a gene that should happen once every 10,000 offspring in the wild could turn into every couple of hundred or less if we start releasing them. So yeah, we don't want to do that. True crocodilians are found in Asia, North America, South America, and Africa. The alligators, their cousins, China, United States. Yeah. So I knew there's true crocodiles in South America. I just don't know if there's any more than the 3 species off the top of my head. What's the possum eating? Peter's favourite food on earth is roses, and it's the last rose for the summer off our bushes. So I thought he can have this for lunch. Yeah. Is there any report of mix between alligators and crocodiles? No. So alligators and crocodiles look very similar, but they've been genetically separate, not even separate species, they're separate genera or genus for millions and millions of years. I've got a video on can pythons and venomous snakes, or can different snakes crossbreed? And what I try and talk about is a myth here in Australia that brown snakes or some of our venomous snakes can crossbreed with pythons. And I explain the taxonomy and the levels of separation between our venomous snakes and non-venomous snakes. And even though it doesn't talk about alligators and crocodiles have about the same degree of separation between our venomous snakes and our non-venomous snakes. So it's millions of years. We are about as closely related to spider monkeys as alligators and crocodiles are related to each other. It's just because I suppose their design works so well that there's been very little deviation from that design. But genetically, they're very, very far apart. It's why you can have the American crocodile and the alligator coexisting and still not hybridizing. It's not a genetic possibility. They're just too far separated, I'm afraid. Which is probably a good thing. One point that I think people often overlook is if a species can hybridize easily, usually they wouldn't be found in the same area, because if they were, they would have been crossing backwards and forwards and they'd just become one species. So if 2 species are found side by side in the same ecosystem and there's not a really obvious reason why they're not crossbreeding, such as a behavioural difference or a habitat preference in one area, is a pretty good indicator that they can't hybridize. I was helping doing a lot of reptile shows in September and was asked if browns and tigers crossbreed. Yeah, at least, well, of course browns and tigers can't crossbreed. At least that's closer than asking if browns and pythons can crossbreed. I get that all the time, especially when I was living in North Queensland. And it's, people argue it until they're blue in the face. It's a really common misconception. But, when I try and tell them they're more likely to crossbreed with the spider monkey. Kenan is colourblind, so he's just in it for the conservation. Yeah, so there's lots of people who don't have to be colourblind, but have more of an interest in the conservation. The issue is sourcing stock that, take cockatiels, the little Australian sort of, the smallest cockatoo in the world here in Australia. If I wanted to breed wild type cockatiels, I can source out wild type looking cockatiels. But the odds are that any wild type cockatiel I find carries the genes for albinism and pied and cinnamons and all sorts of other mutations. It's only through dealing with actual institutions like Kenan does that he's able to get wild type stock that are genetically wild, don't have any sort of traits that they're carrying that aren't wild type. So yeah, Peter here is a ringtail possum. He's very different to your opossum over in the United States. This guy here is probably one of the most common species across the eastern coast of Australia. Unlike the brushtail who lives in our roofs, these guys dig or build little, we call it a dray. It's like one bird's nest on top of another. G'day, John, how are you, mate? And it's got a front door and a back door. So if something comes in one end, like a carpet python, you can shoot out the other end. They also have up to half a dozen of these drays and hollows, which you'll occasionally use as well. And the reason being, on my theory, on the reason why they have so many den sites, is if you're sleeping in one place every single night, week on week, month on month, year on year, that place will start to smell as if there's an animal in there. And when your main predator would be, or one of your main predators up north would be something like a carpet python with a very keen sense of smell, it doesn't make sense to stay in the same place. If you're always moving, that smell doesn't build up. And I haven't seen any proof to this, but it's a pretty common theme. Look at our big cats, lions, and tigers. They routinely move their babies from one den site to another den site. It's cute, that possum. Yeah, he's a very cute little guy. Interesting thing about the ringtail possum, even though I feed him roses as a treat, before we brought roses to Australia, their natural food would be eucalyptus, gum leaves. And gum leaves are a pretty horrible food to live off. People talk about koalas being drunk on eucalyptus, which is a myth. If you could get drunk on eucalyptus, there wouldn't be a pub in every town in Australia. We'd all be chewing gum leaves. The reason koalas sleep all day, gum leaves have virtually no energy. So, of all your organs, one of the biggest organs that takes energy is your brain. And koalas don't have a lot to think about. You don't have to be smart to outthink gum leaves. They're not sitting in the branch worried about global warming and Donald Trump. And so they've shrunk their brain down to like a walnut to not have to waste energy. Possums, what they've done, or ringtail possums, to get as much energy out of the eucalyptus as they can, is they practice what we call coprophagia. Basically, it means they eat their own poo. So in the wild, Peter here would cruise around the bush up in the canopy, pick the really soft, nice leaves at the end of each branch, eat those, and during the day, when he's in his nest, he would actually have to eat his own droppings. And it takes 2 laps of his digestive system to get enough nutrition out of the gum leaves to survive. So, pretty cool. G'day Wildlife Brothers, how are you guys? That's another one for everybody out there. If you're interested in my videos, check out Wildlife Brothers. They've actually got a video on my channel, on the red-eared slider. So either look at that or look them up directly and you'll find them. I think we'll be heading off before long. My phone's beeping that it's low batteries. But he is a beautiful ringtail possum. Carpet python feed. Don't listen, I love my carpet pythons, but our mammals are actually in a lot of trouble. While I'm a reptile... Well, I don't actually describe myself as a reptile enthusiast. I love reptiles, but my preference is for anything native. So I keep a lot of reptiles. Way cuter than yours for sure. Yeah, but yours are really important. They eat ticks. They're resistant to rabies. They're a vital part of the ecosystem. Most Australians would think, oh, we'll like yours rather than ours, because people always like what they don't have. But yeah, so I enjoy keeping reptiles, but basically, as much as there's some amazing exotic reptiles, I'd probably be more interested in a native mammal than an exotic reptile, and I'd be more interested in a native reptile than an exotic mammal. So ringtail possums are omnivores. No, ringtail possums, he might eat, a grub or something in the tree, but he's not looking for it. How's the inland taipan slug? She's doing well. She's pretty feisty at the moment. We had a few close encounters, but we're doing a video with slug in the next few days on a friend of mine who was bitten by a taipan. So I've got to get her out and do a bit of filming. But yeah, ringtail possums are herbivorous. The brush-tail possum, their bigger cousin, who's a distant cousin, they're certainly more omnivorous. They'll eat whatever they can find. And the sugar gliders are actually very omnivorous. Sugar gliders have been introduced to the island of Tasmania. They're not native to Tasmania. And over there, they're actually a really big problem. They're eating the baby parrots from swift parrots and orange-bellied parrots, who are both endangered species. They breed in Tasmania and they spend the rest of their lives on mainland. So they fly to Tasmania, they nest in all these hollows because there's never been sugar gliders in Tasmania, and now the sugar gliders are eating all their babies. Yeah, Wildlife Brothers. Australia, as you know, is the worst mammal extinction rate in the world. Possums can be kept as pets in some states in Australia. I think it's only 2, Victoria and South Australia. And they can't come from the wild or anything. They've got to be captive raised. Obviously, things are a little bit different for me. I keep all my animals on an educational permit. So, I know, the rose is all gone. So I suppose before I finish things up there, guys, like I said, we need a couple of ideas on names for that water dragon that you might have seen. And I suppose I just want to have a bit of a shameless plug again. If anybody's interested, on our website now, wickedwildlife.com, we do have a couple of designs for shirts. If there's anything you would like to see on a shirt, because I'm not a creative person, let us know. I would like to put up whatever sort of designs and things you like. Hydra, maybe? Hydra could be good. What I'm going to do with the name is I'm going to try and collect a bunch of ideas, and I'm going to let my patrons sort of vote on it. Because my patrons are the group of people who you see their names up in the credits of my videos, and there's a couple more at sort of a $1 and $2 level who are tooties. There's they're so kind as to contribute every month to helping us bring out our videos. Because you other guys who have channels will understand you don't make anything from YouTube. It's a couple of bucks here and there. So the reason we haven't got a video out lately is I've been chasing so much external work, doing wildlife shows, but a lot of farm work and things as well, to keep everybody fed and happy and paid for. So yeah, if you want to know more about that, check us out on patreon.com. We're bringing out another Patreon level where you can ask us a question that we'll cover as a video every month, which we're looking for a name for that sort of Patreon level as well. So yeah, let us know. And you can find details there about your shirts. Also, patrons get a couple of bucks off our shirts. You're saying hello to everybody? One cool thing about this guy, you'll see on his hands, he's got 3 fingers and 2 thumbs. And the only other animal I know off the top of my head that has that is the koala. Ducky from The Land Before Time. Yeah, maybe Ducky. There's a female that come with him. Ducky might be more of a girl's name. Yeah, he's pretty cute, isn't he? He's hard not to love. Little prehensile tail. Alright, you go find your beanie. So, anyway, guys, I might wrap things up on there because my phone's been beeping that is that a sugar lad? No, it's a ringtail possum. But yeah, I'm about to run out of batteries on my phone, and I better wake up the little tacker and get back to daddy duties, Ducky and George. But thanks for watching as always, guys. I promise we'll get some more actual regular videos out over the next few weeks. Now that things are finally quietening down and I can get a chance to film some of these things. But other than that, yeah, thanks for watching. Check us out on Patreon, Facebook, all that sort of jargon. And I'll see you next time I get a chance for live. When will video